Sarah had always adored her golden retriever Max for his loyalty and playfulness. She lived alone, and Max was her only companion. One sunny day, while taking Max for a walk, she noticed something unusual. Max had his mouth wrapped around a plastic bag, and there was something moving inside. Sarah couldn't believe her eyes when she looked inside, but the vet had something else to say. Soon after, Sarah arrived at the vet. She had tried to get the bag out of Max's mouth herself, but he kept jumping backward and running away from her. He even growled at her, which he hadn't done before. She only hoped the vet would be able to safely get the bag out of Max's mouth. The vet took one look at the animals, and his eyes grew wide with shock. "Step back!" he yelled as he looked at his assistant. "Run for your life!" Sarah was very confused. What was going on here? And why would the vet say something like that? She feared her dog was in danger, but what was inside the bag? Why didn't Max want to let the bag go? And why would the vet say something like that? It wasn't easy living alone in a rural area. That's why Sarah decided to buy a dog for herself. Luckily, she quickly found a new companion when she went to visit her parents back in the city. She wandered past an animal shelter and saw the most beautiful golden retriever she had ever seen. His coat was shiny and clean, and his brown eyes looked straight into her soul. There was no way she would be able to leave the dog behind, so she immediately adopted him. He was approximately 2 or 3 years old and found on the street only weeks before. She named the dog Max, after her grandfather. Everything was going smoothly at first. Max quickly realized he was in a safe home, and his personality started to blossom. One day, as she was strolling around the forest as she did every Sunday, she lost sight of Max as he ran around. She didn't think much of it as he did this more often. She could always hear where Max was. It was either by the rustling leaves, the birds flying away, or him barking every moment or so, but suddenly it was dead silent. Only the sounds of birds happily chirping in the trees could be heard. Sarah started to worry. Where was Max? She began shouting his name and checking his usual hiding spots, but he was nowhere to be seen. But still, no response. Not even a little bark. Where could he be? It was getting dark, and if there was one thing Sarah hated, it would be walking through the forest in the pitch-black darkness. She hurried home, her heart pounding in her chest. That night, Sarah tossed and turned in bed. Usually, Max lay curled up beside her so the bed felt empty. She eventually got a bit of sleep, but as soon as the sun came up, she was outside looking for him. She found footprints of Max in the mud and was able to trace them. Then, after walking for a mile or so, she heard a sound. It didn't sound like Max, but she saw his white fur in the distance. As she got closer, she could see her dog sitting on the ground, keeping perfectly still as if he was frozen. Max had something in his mouth. Sarah frowned and took a step forward to snatch the object out of Max's mouth, but the dog jumped backward. Sarah froze and took her time examining the object closer. Was it really what she thought it was? There was a living thing inside. She had to help the animal and quickly. Otherwise, it could possibly suffocate inside the bag. But then, the animal popped its head out of a small hole. Sarah was relieved to see the animal could breathe, and now she could also see which animal they were dealing with. It was a small duck, an animal she hadn't seen in this part of the forest before. Sarah knelt on the ground, examining the tiny creature nestled in her palm. The duckling's soft quacks were barely audible, its small wings drooping noticeably. Sarah's heart ached, pondering, has Max harmed you, or is there another unseen malady at play? As Sarah continued to hold the delicate duckling, she felt a warmth radiating from her heart. She whispered soothingly, promising the small creature, "You're not alone anymore. We'll navigate this journey together." The connection between them intensified, making Sarah wonder, "Max, is there something about this duckling you're sensing that I'm not?" A few paces away, Sarah's eyes caught sight of a distinct trail leading through the dense undergrowth. Memories of the nearby lake resurfaced. An idea took root. Perhaps this path would provide answers about the duckling's origins. Emerging at the lakeside, Sarah was met with an unsettling calm. The water's surface mirrored the sky, undisturbed by wildlife. The laughter of children from her memories and the quacking of ducks were absent, replaced by a haunting stillness. Max's behavior shifted noticeably near the lake's edge. His playful demeanor vanished, replaced by visible discomfort and alertness. Sarah's concern mounted as she attempted to soothe him, saying, "I know something's amiss, Max. Let's figure it out together." The lake, once a haven of happiness, whispered tales of change and mysteries yet unsolved. The sun began its descent, casting the forest in twilight's embrace. Shadows lengthened and Sarah's concern grew. She was aware of the perils that nighttime could bring. With the Duckling safely tucked against her and Max on alert, she quickened her pace, the urgency to reach home safely driving her forward. Sarah resolved to uncover the truth, knowing tomorrow would be a day of discovery. With anticipation, Sarah approached the local vet's clinic, the familiar red-bricked building that had treated Max several times before. She remembered the 24-hour emergency vet across town, but the hefty emergency fee weighed on her mind. Is it worth it? She wondered aloud, picturing the meager savings in her jar at home. The Duckling's feeble quack was all the answer she needed. There was no price too high for a life. In the clinic's soft-lit room, Dr. Grant, the experienced vet, gently examined the Duckling. With steady hands and keen eyes, he initially found the young bird's condition puzzling but not alarming. Suddenly, Dr. Grant froze. He drew back slightly, his eyes widening, and his confident demeanor instantly shattered. "Evacuate," he whispered hoarsely to the nurse by the door. The room erupted in activity. Nurses scrambled, pressing alarms and making urgent calls. Sarah, clutching the empty box, felt a rising sense of dread. The clinic's doors were locked behind them with a resounding click. A van with the city's health department logo arrived. Men in hazmat suits stepped out, their every move measured and methodical. They entered the clinic, leaving a trail of whispered concerns in their wake. The situation was clearly more severe than anyone could have imagined. A stern-faced officer approached Sarah. "Ma'am, we need to know where you found the Duckling," he demanded. Sarah recounted her lakeside discovery, trying to stay calm. "Is the Duckling dangerous?" she quavered, her voice barely above a whisper. As the police took notes and consulted among themselves, Sarah felt increasingly isolated. By evening, word had spread throughout the town. The incident at the vet clinic, the mysterious Duckling, and Sarah's involvement were the hot topics. The previously welcoming vet's clinic was now adorned with government banners. Officers moved briskly, sealing doors, and ushering out the few remaining patrons. Sarah felt a pang of anxiety, realizing the gravity of the situation had escalated. Officials in lab coats conducted several tests. Each swab and prick heightened her unease. What are they looking for? She pondered, her concern growing with each passing second. Back at home, Max was visibly unsettled. His ears would perk up with every siren, and his anxious pacing seemed endless. Sarah's front yard soon resembled a community gathering. The quiet streets were now overrun with news crews. Cameramen jostled for the best angles, while reporters eagerly sought out eyewitnesses. Inside the government facility, the little Duckling's plight continued. Separated from the world by thick glass, its tiny body lay motionless, save for the occasional flutter of its wings. Sarah, hearing updates from the officials, felt a surge of guilt and wished she could be there for it. Days filled with uncertainty took a toll on Sarah. She felt a mix of guilt, fear, and frustration. "Why did I pick up the Duckling?" The government official cleared his throat, the room hanging on his every word. "The Duckling," he began, "is infected with a highly contagious disease." Gasps filled the room. Sarah felt her heart drop, recalling her close contact with the fragile bird. Within minutes, loudspeakers blared instructions for the town's residents. Quarantine zones were established and streets cleared. Officials moved swiftly, ensuring every potential contact was identified and isolated. Watching the precision of the operations, Sarah felt a mix of admiration and fear. Brought into a makeshift clinic, Sarah was given a series of medications. The pills, she was told, would protect her. In an isolated room, the Duckling, now named Brave by the medical staff, faced its greatest battle. Nurses and vets surrounded it, their faces etched with concern, but also determination. As days passed, a tangible tension enveloped the town. Playgrounds lay deserted, and once buzzing streets were eerily silent. Reports on Brave's progress brought joy. The little Duckling, demonstrating immense spirit, was showing signs of healing, much to everyone's relief. The town hall organized a gathering where tales of courage, unity, and resilience were shared. Parents, children, and elders alike realized that facing challenges together made them stronger. The incident with Brave was a lesson in vigilance, love, and unity. With the crisis averted, life inched back to normal. Yet the heroes of the ordeal, Sarah, Max, and Miracle the Duckling, became local legends. They were celebrated in school assemblies, community events, and were even featured in the local newspaper.